Hello and welcome to Mockup Day. You might have heard about these digital mockups. They're everywhere, and as a graphic designer, you can't really get by without them. They are necessary to sell the product, to sell especially if you're a freelancer, or to present an idea. They are super necessary. You cannot just present the idea without them unless who you're presenting the idea to has already done a bunch of boxes and they could clearly see in their mind's eye what your work is going to look like. If they can't, then you basically need to put your work into a mockup. And mockups can be expensive. They can be cheap if you buy just the image by itself and do an overlay on it. But if you buy the mockup, the smart mockup, they could get kind of expensive, especially if it's every time. Mockups range from $10 to $14 to $19. It's just all over the place. The bad thing about mockups is not the price, really. It's just that they don't really have the right size all the time. Most of the packaging you do has a custom size, and for you to squeeze your design onto one of those mockups is kind of doing disservice to your design, especially when you can make your own mockup for cheap. Here's how. You're going to need paper. I'm going to take you back to school.
Going to school.
Cardstock is the ideal paper. Don't get it too thick though, because then it won't work for what we're gonna do. It does have to be a little bit thicker. You're also gonna need a scoring tool. Life will be much easier if you get yourself a scoring tool, or as some may call it, a bone folder. Scoring knife, scoring thingy. It's all the same water. And the last thing you're gonna need is an X-Acto knife. I'm sure you're all familiar with this. It's one of the go-to crafty things to get. You should have this stuff laying around. If you don't, then it's not too expensive to get them. One Amazon order or one order of this stuff, or one shop at Walmart, is gonna get you 20 or 30 easily mock-ups that you can own and make yourself, and they're going to be the exact size. The only downside to this method is that you have to get your craftsmanship side of yourself working. You got to get those hands moving again in ways that don't involve a mouse and a keyboard. But I think this is good. This is good for everybody. It's good for you, it's good for me.
Is it possible to learn this power?
But before that we get into building the mockup, you're going to need the design. So let's make a quick design and then we'll jump into building the mock. Okay, so this is one of my pending designs. For this one, I don't have much information from the client other than it's a travel brand, other than they want to feel like looking to the sky and going on a plane or going for a walk. And what they're going to focus on is selling neck pillows and traveling blankets, amenities, and as well as tools for travel. So one of the things that they want is that they want it to be very like nature, fresh feeling kind of a brand, since they're going to be eco-friendly. They want a lot of green. That's their main colors they chose, this green and aqua blue. And their logo doesn't have any color, it's just a silhouette. Basically it means walk in a different language, and they didn't give me much else, but they did wanted me to start the design process to see where this brand would go. This has a long way to go, but for now and for the sake of this video, I think it's a great start actually. I ended up liking this design a lot. So when I think about traveling, or I think about going somewhere, you always look up into the sky when an airplane is passing, and the best way that you have experienced that in a serendipitous moment is when you're laying in the grass. You're laying in the grass, you're either in the park, and then the plane just happens to fly by, and you always think like, I wish I was on that plane. Quick interval here. So just in case you didn't know, Google offers free icons for you to use in your work, on your websites, anywhere you want. You just gotta go to googleicons.com. Link in the description is actually fonts.google.com/icons, where you could find all these cool needle icons to use in all your work for free. So Google got a 10 out of 10 in this one. And I also wanted people that receive the package or are into the brand to be reminded of all the fun little activities that they could do while traveling that they cannot actually do while at home or at work. I just wanted to put plaster all these icons all over the box. At first I thought I was gonna do some clouds and just put the icons. Somehow that looked way better in my head than it actually turned out, so I opted a safer solution, that is just to wrap the box, at least the top part of the box, with icons. And that turned out to be the missing piece of the puzzle. But I didn't want to give the icons too much attention, so finding the right color was key. A little bit of a ghostly appearance was what I was after. And finally, for the last act, I wanted to work some kind of details into the design, so tall grass ended up being the winner. I wanted to give the design the respect it needed, even though I'm trying to do it in a hurry. I actually gave myself only 3 hours to do this whole project video, and that's not a lot of time to really think about these things, but still it was enough time to make an initial design and present to the client. Adding elements of fun are always a good idea to your design. Don't be too boring or too generic, or especially if the client is inclined to having fun with their package, having fun with the experience of opening their box. You should just go all out. That's when you really start having fun. So that's what I was doing here, adding a little bit of movement throughout the package, a little line, so that people feel like they're gonna go somewhere as soon as they open the box. So here's the finished packaging. Voila! It does need some refining, but this is, for the sake of the video, we're gonna move forward. And this is where all the magic starts to happen. So what you'll need is to get a die line, open an 8.5 by 11 page, and scale down the die line so that it fits inside the 8.5 by 11 page, 300 DPI. We're basically going to make a mini cutout box that we could do from our printer, and using cardstock is going to give us the perfect means. You want to leave these lines as light as possible. Don't make them dark, so that they don't bother you when you are in the Photoshop phase doing these, and they are easy to get rid of. The lighter you could do them, the better, but you might need to do them a little bit darker. So the only thing you need to adjust to make this die line work in your printer are these tabs that fold. Just make them as thin as possible, not too thin. You do actually need them so they could look realistic and they could show up, and when you start folding this thing up and printing it. All you need to do is print to scale at 300 dpi and at 100% scale in your cardstock. That's it. You do that, then you get a mock-up printed out. You will literally barely be able to see it if you do it right. If you do it wrong, then you're going to really see it. But even if you do it wrong, it's okay. It's just a tip to make it easier for you in the Photoshop phase. For the sake of this video, I did ended up making the lines a little bit darker. So you're gonna want to score everything first before you start cutting. The better your scoring job is, the easier it's gonna be when you cut. So score every fold first. Then once you're done, you could start cutting. When you do start cutting, I recommend that you start cutting out the little holes you're gonna end up cutting anyways. It's easier to cut these little holes while the whole paper is intact than to cut them after the fact. So just do your best to cut it. Show us your maximum talent, X-Acto knife skills, which I clearly and absolutely lack. Once you're done with your hole inside the box, then you can move out to the outside of the line. You can either cut right on the line or just a little bit outside of the line, but don't cut inside of the line or else nothing is going to work. Another great feature of doing this is that you're going to find out if there's something wrong with your dot end. If you have a measurement wrong, if something doesn't work or something doesn't close up, this is how you find it. Just be careful when you're doing this last part that requires you to do another round of the X-Acto knife to actually take out the little punch outs. Don't go and cut yourself, and if you need an adult to help you, just ask for their help. Please don't cut yourself. Once it's done, do a little finger dance over it, and let's move on to the next phase, which is folding it. The only thing you have to do to be successful while folding it is just do a pre-fold of all the score lines. Even though we're doing it backwards, it'll work. This isn't that thick of a paper that it needs to be scored on the correct side. I am, however, assuming that you do know how your die line works and folds. If you don't, I don't know what to tell you, but you should actually know how your die line works. If not, this is a great place to find out how your die line works. So the neater you do it, the better it's going to look at the end of the process. So this is the little box we made. This is where we're gonna put our mock-up in. Now pay attention. To get a good, correct size picture, make sure you zoom into the ×2 zoom on your phone, so that you are actually at a 48mm focal length. Ideally, you should be at 50mm, but hey, this is what we got on the phone. So here we are inside of everyone's favorite, Photoshop. Anyway, here are the pictures, unfiltered, unedited. This is what comes straight out of the phone. I mean, they're alright, but of course, we're gonna have to make a mock-up quality first. So I'm going through all the pictures, see which one I like. I'll pick the one that I like. And one of the very big added benefits to doing it this way is that you basically get to place your mock-up any which way you want with the with the lid open, with the lid closed, upside down, inside out, however you want. And you could do it without any pain of spending to get a different view of the mock-up, any pain of having to really work to get that view that you want, or even place it on top, or do it any other which way. Once you do the first part of the cutout, this part is just a breeze and a delight to do. If you have done any kind of Photoshop, if you have done any kind of photograph touch-ups, this is like, you know, it's gonna be a walk in the park for you. This is how I did it. Doesn't mean that you should do it this way. There is plenty of ways to do this, especially inside of Photoshop, or if you're on a string shoe budget, you could also do this in Photopea or Affinity Photo 2. Is the same thing. It's the same process. So all we're gonna do is clean up the picture. I used to like to use curves to do this process, but more recently I've been doing levels. It just feels like the picture gets brighter with the right amount of contrast. And there you go. It's all going to start to come together. All I'm doing here is cutting out the first image, which is the box from the background, so that I could lower the opacity on the background, and that would give it the creamy bouquet feel. Bouquet, I should say. And the last thing you want to do with this is give it a monochromatic tone. You don't want to have any kind of creamy or yellow colors in this. You want it to be all shades of gray or white, so that your colors come out as true to the color of the original artwork as possible. Once you have your mock-up ready to go, it's just a question of importing your design into Photoshop and distorting it. That's it. There's not that much more to it to do a mock-up. I'm sure you've done a similar thing before, and I'm sure that if you bought those images only mock-up, you have done this kind of thing too, where you place and you play around with the opacity or the type of layer. You just do this until you're satisfied with your own work, and you should be done. If you are presenting this to a client, just make sure you do have an eye for detail. Finish the whole mock-up. Don't just leave some white parts here and there. Make sure you add every color that is missing so that the mock-up looks as realistic as possible. At the end of the day, this is just so that you know that you could actually do this without having to go out and purchase an expensive mock-up that's not even gonna fit. And there you have it. This is the results. It looks good. Actually came out really good, and I didn't have to squeeze my design too much or try to make it fit anyway. You know, you might think that downloading a finished mock-up it's 10 times as faster than this, but if you really think of it, unless you have that exact mock-up design or size, you're going to end up photoshopping in it anyways if you want to really present it as accurately as possible to your client. So it does have its benefits, it does have its cons, but it does get you away from the screen of the computer and gets other parts of your body working. So that's it for today. If you guys have any kind of trouble with graphic design, if you need any kind of help, put it down in the comments and I'll be happy to help you. If you like this video, make sure you like it.
It has been a pleasure, Mr. Wick.
And as always, remember to check out designsky.com.